Okay, in this video I'm going to be talking about model space and paper space. You like that? I created a little bubble word there. Hi. Anyway, so we've been working in model space, which is this infinite background. It goes on forever and ever. Like this green and red line, those are the Y and X axis lines. Like they're not real, like they're not, they won't show up if you print from this page. They're just to show, they're just guidelines to show you where that is on the screen, because it does go on forever. So let's get back to where I was. This is the model space, and it does identify which space you are working in right here on this bottom tab. Right here where my mouse is, it says model. So to get to paper space, you need to go through a layout. Usually there's a couple of layouts already created for you, which are just blank pages. Or you can create your own layout by hitting this arrow, which we'll just do that for the fun of it. And I select on it, and what you get is a paper space. And you can tell that you're on paper space because it says paper down here, and your background is white, and it looks like a sheet of paper. So, to kind of clarify what's going on and what you're seeing, I'm going to just clear this screen because it's going to be easier for me to explain it if I can draw it in myself. So in our paper space, what's really cool about it is we can draw right on this paper. And a lot of that is used for like a construction document. So a lot of firms will have their construction documents kind of with a line right here, and it'll say their name, who they are, what project they're working on, all types of stuff over here. And then normally their plans are over here in the paper space. And how they get those plans to show up, they aren't just copying and pasting them. They are creating a viewport, which is a viewport is a window to your model space. So anything that you do in the model space, you can see on your paper space through a viewport, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like a magic portal to your model space, and any edits that you make inside of your viewport will translate to your model space, or anything that you change in your model space is going to change in your viewport, if that makes any sense. So to create a viewport, you just type in the word viewports, hit enter, and then you have an option to create more than just one viewport. You can do 2 or 3, and then their orientations. But we're just going to do one single viewport for this example. Hit OK. So then it wants me to draw the viewport. So I click one corner, drag it. You can do the whole screen, part of the screen. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. So then I select my second point, and what pops up is the drawing that I created in model space. So if I go back over there, you can see that it is the same, but it's really big. If you double click inside of that viewport you made, then you are working in the model space. So you see how the word down here changed. It's because yes, you are looking at your paper space on your layout, number 3, but you double clicked inside of your viewport. You activated it, so now you're working in model. So if I double click outside of it onto my paper, now I can't select anything inside of here. It's just a picture on a piece of paper, and I'm back in my paper space. A cool thing about viewports is you can resize them. So if you click on, so if you're not inside of the viewport already, you need to be just in your paper space. You can hover around the line that you made for your viewport and you can change the size of it. And do you see, oops, I accidentally went way inside of it. So you can see that when you change it, the size of the viewport, it's not changing the scale of what's in your model space. All you're doing is changing the size of the window of what you want to show, if that makes sense. Let me just make this make sense a little bit. Oops. Sorry, guys. Okay. So you can manipulate things in the model space from your paper space as long as you're working inside of the viewport. So when you double click, now you're in the model space. You can manipulate anything inside of here. So I'm going to move this group of circles up to there. So now it doesn't say hi anymore. Aw, that's sad. So I'm just going to show you that this does correlate back to model space. So go back here. It changed. See? I'm just going to move it back because I want it to say hi to you. So yeah, another way to get into this viewport is if you double click on the border, it takes you into the model space. And to get out of that, you have to hit this button right here, minimize viewport, or type in PS for paper space. That'll always get you out of the viewport if you're stuck in there. Also, this button you can use to maximize the viewport. So if you just select it, and you know it's selected because it's bolder around the corners there, you can hit this button, maximize viewport, and now you can kind of work in that layout in the model space. If that makes sense at all. I hope it does. Paper space, when you have a viewport, is you can change the scale of what is in your viewport, because on your model space you're just, there's not really a scale, it's just like a huge thing. Yes, we measure things in inches, but the real scaling comes out in paper space when we're going to print. So let's click on the viewport to activate it, and I'm going to scale it to, so over here is our scaling option. It's like usually going to show up as a weird decimal at first because you haven't set the scale yet. So if you hit this drop down button, you can change the scale. So there's a bunch of options, scale to fit. There's these 1 to 2, 1 to 1 things. I don't really use those. I typically use these ones right here, like an 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, things like that. So I'm just gonna do an 1/8 inch, and as you can see, it changed, like it got smaller in that viewport. Now it's perfectly scaled at 1/8 of an inch on this size paper. And then another thing you can do is lock that scale. So if you're ever working in that viewport, or yeah, if you're working in it and you don't want the scale to change accidentally because you scrolled, you can lock it by hitting this lock button here. So since it's shaded blue, it means it's locked, and I cannot change the scale by going in and scrolling up and down. It just makes the paper